What is up, guys, and welcome back to part number 2 of the Charlie Carrel PLO review. The man, the myth, the legend, Epiphany 77, playing 200 Zoom. Part number 1 is already up on this channel. Part number 2 starts right now. Haven't seen these hands before, and
don't mind if I do.
We jump straight into the action.
Don't mind if I don't. This is not an open.
This is not an open, that is correct. So the thing about betting out of position here is that most players see bet way too much out of position, and that is going to impact the amount of hands they can continue with after checking by a bunch. So the check fold frequency for out of position is way too high on average in terms of the regulars and for sure the recreational players. So on a board like 8-6 deuce, that doesn't favor the preflop raiser specifically, like the equities here are quite close, like 50-50. You generally are betting very infrequently, like maybe around 20% or less. So let's have a look. The board here is 8-6 deuce. I'm going to work here with PLO Trainer. You can learn more about this app on PLOtrainer.app. We're looking here at an MP open button call. So MP versus button, and we're looking at an unpaired single suited board, 8-6 deuce or so. So 8-6 deuce is right here. Let's see if we're looking at 20% or less for out of position. We're looking here at 19.3%. The GOAT striked again. Is this hand a c-bet? Kind of hard to say because you probably don't have ace king a3 in your open raising range in MP, but maybe similar hands. I mean, if the hand would be double suited, it would be in the open raising range. So ace king a3. We will see only double-suited variations if we do have no flush draw. He has a backdoor flush draw, the backdoor not flush draw. So he has no flush draw, but he does have a backdoor flush draw. Hand goes for a check, 97.4%. I would say we want to go ahead and check, call this hand on the flop. So look, ace king a3, no flush draw, but a backdoor flush draw. Yeah, it just goes for the straight call. This would be the appropriate line to play, basically, because when you betting a call, like, you're not in good shape. And the hand also doesn't have a lot of playability features. Like, if the turn is a straightening card, like, you're not going to barrel, you're just going to check fold. If the turn is a flush completing card, you're not going to barrel with a 3 of hearts, you're just going to check fold. So, like, you're building a pot against a stronger range. But it's kind of unnecessary because the hands you're making fold in the flop are mostly behind. And you do need some hands in your check calling range. This hand makes a lot of sense because it doesn't really beat or generate value from hands that are calling a flop bet, essentially. So it's basically a medium-strong hand with decent playability for turns and rivers, which is more suitable for check call than betting or check raising.
I'm not a professional, so I can't tell you this with absolute certainty.
I don't really want to spam too much here, but however, there are some opponents that play very passive, and against passive opponents, your overall bet frequency out of position should go up a little bit because they're not going to do the betting for you when you have great hands. In that case, you want to start betting the best hands yourself instead of going for a check raise because their stab frequency will be lower than it quote-unquote should be in the model. So you will see in position will stab a flop like this like 50% of the time for half pot. Let's see what it is on 8-6 deuce specifically. It is 48.3%, and the average player at 200 Zoom is stabbing something along the lines of like 42%. So less than the model suggests, which means you can bet a few more hands. But ace king a3 doesn't fit this category because this hand is anyway too much middle of the road to make it attractive for betting.
But I'm going to say with relative certainty, this is not an open.
Correct.
Pretty nice hand to see there, though.
Nope.
Got that little wheel, backdoor, got the top pair, got that backdoor. Oh, now top 2. Oh.
Well, that's a nice turn card. I would suggest to double barrel turn because in position already showed some strength by calling. We will see a lot of overpairs with flush draws, backdoor flush draws, or front door flush draws. And all those hands are basically not betting for you. So you just want to bet yourself. Polarized also is fine. Just potting the turn or betting 75 is good.
Oh.
He's trying to go for the overbet. I mean, obviously, he's not really, but you know what I mean.
The only PLO I've really played is high stakes live.
And the thing about the thing about PLO live is that it is a different game in many regards, and also way softer.
Either when I've been sitting down at some PLO.
I mean, it is softer, but also there are different challenges ahead of you, right? Like you need to understand how to navigate in 4 or 5 way situations, sometimes play ultra deep, sometimes play really shallow. And the most difficult thing about multi-way pots in live PLO is that all the stacks are so different from each other. And that really makes it very tricky. You need very strong fundamentals, which you can learn in the PLO Mastermind, in order to understand how to navigate these kind of spots.
A table in a casino for lols, or when I've been playing in a private game. I think some of the first hands I ever played at PLO, I think I played some 25-50 or 10-25 or something like that, and crushed.
On a side note, if you're a no limit hold'em player, you play like 5-10 live, like $5, $10, and there is a juicy 5-10 PLO game. That's not the same size of a game, by the way. Like 5-10 PLO is a lot bigger than 5-10 NL.
And then play some live 100, 200 as my next bout.
Yeah, and also 5-10 PLO turns into 5-10 25 really quick. So look, decent open on the button.
So, running good lifetime.
Don't do it. Jack 3-5 deuce. The thing MP has like these suits crushed, has the run. I mean, I don't really want to call this a rundown, but like the straight draws you're gonna flop with are not that valuable. The pairs you're gonna flop are very questionable. So the issue with this hand is that you do hit because you are double suited and there's some connectivity in your hand. But when you do hit, you're second best, and you have to chase a draw that you can't value bet, but have to call to get there, so to speak. So let's say you flops a club draw, still got to call a bet, even though you're oftentimes behind. And when you do make the flush, 5 high flush, even a jack high flush, your hand is usually not good enough to value bet, so you're still in a bluff catcher position. So it's not a good premise, especially against MP. This is a pretty nice flop though. Pair and a gutter and a flush draw. However, PFR is going to have ace like pretty often.
Flush draw.
Or like kings and hearts.
Draw. Takes me a while.
Called 3-bet, this is fine. Like most of the hands are fine calling on 3-bet within position. I mean, here we're facing a 50 or 40 big blind player. Not amazing, but not a huge crime call here.
I used to have Ben next to me being like, this is what you're...
I mean, guess is a big word as I'm a PLO player and coach. But I would say this hand is probably quite questionable to open on the button if the big blind is 40 big blinds deep and he knows what he's doing. But we'll have a look. So let's say we're looking at 50 big blind ranges, or we could also do something like, do we have 40 big blind over here? Yeah, let's have a look at 40 big blind over here. Buttons RFI frequency at 40 is like 30%, and then queen 8 and 7. Single suited is actually pure fold. So with the low suit, we're losing like 0.1. So yeah, probably not an open, but it is unlikely an unknown player sitting on 40 big blinds is 3-betting aggressively enough to punish a queen 9-8-7 open. So it's not a big deal.
Hand is, by the way. Thank you.
Calling 3-bet is also fine, and on the flop you should get it. Then you have a pair and a straight draw and a backdoor flush draw. Like you need here less than 40% equity at SPR2. Your hand is probably going to have something along the lines of anywhere between 45 and 55% equity.
No idea.
Depends what your opponent has exactly.
Good luck.
If I would have to guess, I would say Charlie wakes up here with, let's say 48.
Guess?
Oh my God. Oh, it's almost like I play this game on a regular basis. Holy shit. 48.3. Didn't get the 3. Guys, I haven't seen this part of the video before. Promise. Haven't seen this before. Wakes up with a 48%.
Flipping against aces. Confirming our choice.
Don't cash out.
Resume hand, guys. Never cash out. DOTT, boys. DOTT. Either one of those cards on the turn would have done it.
What is DOTT?
All right.
What happened here? I guess he check called the flop. Turn is a 3. Like he could block the turn, like lead out for 25% of the pot. But I would guess what actually happened is he check called the flop, turn goes check check. Is that true? And then the question, should he do something on the river? I mean,
we have what was 2 pair and a flush draw, and is now.
Yeah. It's one of those spots where you're like, I have such a bad hand, but I think the issue is that your opponent is going to have ace-x quite often. Is ace-x folding? Well, flush draws missed. 8x is rather unlikely for big blinds. Could have some 8x though, like 8x and backdoor diamonds. Obviously not 8x of diamonds, but like 8, 9, 7 of diamonds or 6, 7, 8. But it is really a tricky one, you know. Like if your opponent has and he doesn't use stats, but I would recommend to use stats. I actually just made a course on stats. But if this player has a reasonable c-bet frequency, which he probably does, I think this is a regular, then you're not going to see a lot of king high rundowns or pocket kings or queens here. You're going to see ace-x quite often. And I think ace-x is going to call with a fair chunk. We'll see.
Pretty much the worst hand we could ask for. I'm just going to give up.
Good. I like it. Oh, unlucky. He would have gotten a fold, but 10s are good. Do we like the c-bet here of queen 10, 10, 6? I would say I don't mind it too much. Like you can, specifically when you have 10s and the big blind defense and the big blind isn't too loosey-goosey like Charlie in this case. Big blind is going to have a lot of like kings and queens and jacks that you're obviously not beating, and they will have to fold in the flop. And that's not too bad. But, I mean, getting kings to fold, you know, it's not a huge win when you have 10s with a flush draw and a backdoor flush draw and a backdoor straight draw. Like, you're getting a good amount of equity to fold, but at the same time, you also want to have some hands to check back range and can call turns and whatnot. So, I think either way is fine. Like, the EV won't be that different. It's all cool.
10s is good.
10s is good indeed.
That hand was not going to call us.
That is also correct.
However, don't worry about it. C-bet.
Okay, what happened here?
Betting.
So, small bet defense. Chart decides to c-bet the flop, which, you know, when you're betting the flop with ace high, you got to ask yourself what hand is folding that is better or has significant equity. And I would say in this case, probably no hand. A jack isn't folding, pocket queens are not folding, pocket kings are not folding. A 6 is probably not folding with all the... Like when your opponent has a 6, he's going to have like a 6 high rundown. So backdoor straight draws, 2 pairs, backdoor flush draws, not going to fold against a single bet on the flop. So I would actually prefer to take a free card in this case. And then bet hands that... So you want to bet hands basically like a 10, 9, 8, 7, because then you're going to make better hands fold like ace, king, and... Sorry, ace, king. I mean, ace, king, yes, but ace high and king high and queen high is what I'm trying to say, basically. And then ace, king, 7, 5, probably just take a free card.
Gonna be...
So he bets flop pot's turn. Don't like it. The 8 is very much going to connect with the calling range on the flop. He's going to have jack X that turned a straight draw or 2 pair. It's going to have pocket kings, pocket queens that turned a flush draw. It's going to have 6X that turned 2 pair and an 8, 6X that turned a flush draw. So he really hopes that his opponent has a hand like king, queen, jack, 10 without clubs that is going to fold. And that's the thing, like if you start betting the flop with not so solid ranges, you can get easily trapped into this position on a turn where you either give up too much or you barrel too much. And I would say Charlie's probably in the camp of barreling too much.
Everything seems bad, so I'm just going to check it.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to 3-bet double suited.
Ace king 6 9. I mean,
Straight away.
so he 3-bets ace king 6 9 double. Notable here is that you have 2 high suits, which that does lower the chances to dominate your opponent in a 3-bet pot, flush draw, or flush draw, and makes the hand overall not as attractive to 3-bet. However, I think that because it is quite disconnected, we might see a 3-bet by the solver because a fold pre is actually quite valuable. I mean, ace king 7 5 would probably 3-bet. Ace king 6 9. It's not a big deal. Like, again, I would usually make these decisions more so based on my opponent's tendencies, like their stats, especially when playing on stars because you do have stats. So, ace king 9 6 single suited to the nuts is... Wait, he's double suited. Double suited. And it's a pure 3-bet. There's a shiver of calling with the low suits in here, but I would say that if you look at the bigger picture, ace king, no pair, double suited, and you also have no queen, no jack, and no 10 in there. 52% of the hands are 3-betting. And at the end of the day, like, yeah, you want to have 2 high suits mainly, unless your hand is quite connected. For example, ace king 5 4 is using low suits to 3-bet. I think we also have a syntax for that. Double suited, double nut suit. No, it's not nut suit. It is high suit. DSH, high double suited, HDS. Okay, 1 second. So let's say we have HDS. So HDS is 58% three betting with high double suits. And if we have no HDS, but we are double suited, we're three betting 52%. So it's not a huge difference. The connectivity probably matters more. And at the end of the day, again, my opponent's profile kind of, like if he folds against three bets a bunch, or if he open raises a bunch of hands and so on.
The mead's kicking it.
So on 9-5-3, there is a lot of potting involved because the preflop aggressor, the three better, is going to have a bunch of aces. Sometimes you want to bet smaller when you have air or when you have a hand like ace, 6, 7, where you have a bunch of backup. In order, like your small betting range here is more polarized, and then your potting range has basically aces and kings in there that don't feature as much playability. Ace, king, 6, 9 is definitely more towards the later camp. Like it is a hand that once you bet, you can't fold against the jam because you have too much equity. So if you bet, you want to pot. Now the question is, do we want to bet? And I think the answer is yes. First of all, we can get better hands to fold, like pocket kings, queens, jacks, 10s. If they don't connect with the board, they will have to fold because they're going to run into aces too often. So potting makes a lot of sense. And then reluctantly calling it off. We're also blocking some of the straight draws holding a 6, and we're also blocking sets and two pairs holding a 9. So I would say this hand wants to go into your potting range and then stack off. Let's have a look how this plays out. 9-5-3. I don't think 9-5-3 belongs to our subset, but we'll see. So button versus cutoff 3-bet pot, and the board is 9. It's an unpaired rainbow board, like a 9. What do we have here again? We have 9-5-3. So let's say we have 9-5-4. What about 9-5-4? So in position, goes for the pot size option, 48.7%. So there isn't much half potting. Like you mainly want to go ahead and pot. Ace, king, 9-6 is going to pot. Well, so basically we want to pot and just go with it, as mentioned. There's no place here for like in between sizings. That's, I guess, the difference between PLO and NL is that because the game is so equity driven, there are spots in the game where the stack to pot ratio is too shallow to go for bet fold. So you want to lean towards bet folding a small sizing or potting stacking off. And you have to become comfortable to stack off mediocre hands at low SPR after potting and committing. What is he doing? 2288. So now I have no idea if he's going to call if his opponent shoves. He uses the more polarized sizing. But yeah, I don't know. That's the thing. Like sometimes people send me these hands and like, what should I do? And I'm like, well, you shouldn't use this sizing, Like what should I do once my opponent jams? We'll see.
Is this somebody tell me this seems too loose, isn't it?
This is very loose. This is not a winning call in the big blind.
It's like probably not a defend. It's actually a very
okay. So his opponent calls, turn is a 7. Like we have a lot of blockers and equity. We can certainly get better hands to fold. The issue with betting small on the flop is that you will make kings, queens, and jacks continue, which now is good because we can get them to fold in a 7 of clubs. But just on the flop, you're trying to make those hands fold basically. Pot and turn.
Very nice turn. So we're just going to tank, and we're obviously not going to get him to fold any. I guess tank is not even problem.
He's not. He shouldn't be folding any 2-pair basically. Nice hand.
Nice. We've check called top pair, which might even be loose in itself, but with the back door, it's probably fine. Ooh, how well do these hands play? What kind of boards do we want?
This is
we want
terrible
ace-high
hand.
boards.
Terrible hand. Very, very bad hand.
Which is an issue.
Don't do it. Nice.
Hand, isn't it? Shame.
Good fold. Let's see if we can find 1 or 2 more hands for episode number 2. If you guys like this content, make sure to, number 1, follow Mr. Charlie Carrel. He also has a YouTube channel. We'll link it below. Number 2, like the video, subscribe to the channel for more episodes. This is nothing. Also, I don't really like it.
This is what poker should be like. Figuring out how good your pre-flop hand is. Solve this shit.
We can solve this, by the way. PLO Trainer app.
I've heard that there are a lot of people using RTA in these stakes and or just bots in general.
Oh, this is not a good defense. Not a good
Wouldn't be
defense.
surprised.
However, he does flop sort of the nut block, the nut blockers. Yeah, ace of spades, backdoor hearts. It's a very reasonable hand to just lead into your opponent because the only other alternative in this case is check raising, and check raising is pretty costly. Leading in PLO is, on a side note, way more important than in no limit hold, more like way more frequent. So in this case, Queen Jack 5, right? So it is single raise pot between MP and big blind. Flop is Queen Jack 5, right? Unpaired, single suited. Queen Jack deuce, Queen Jack 7. Let's go with Queen Jack 7. So I would think big blind is going to lead here. 17%? I don't know. 17%. Oh, it's 10.7. This is the first blunder of the nizzles. And if he does have ace king with the ace of spades but no flush draw, it's going to lead the flop 40% of the time. And he also has no pocket pair. He has no queen and no jack. And it goes up to 67.6%. Again, because if you look at the hands that are checking, right, like those hands are actually going to be good enough to check call because he does have a wrap, ace, king, 10. But if you look into the combos that don't have that sort of backup, your hand is almost too weak to check raise, definitely too weak to check call. So you prefer just leading out and only risking one bet, essentially.
Get outplay bot. No.
But he did auto check, and that's also a mistake a lot of people do or make. It's just auto check to the preflop raiser. Not really that good in PLO.
I'm probably wrong on that.
So I'm not sure what he's going to do now because, again, check raising at this point when your opponent already showed some strength by betting the flop is a little bit dicey if you have this kind of marginal equity. Only has a gutter and a weak backdoor flush draw.
I bet I could.
I would guess he's going to check raise now.
Let's check call this. We got the ace of spades.
I see.
Now we got a double straight draw and the ace of spades.
That's an interesting way to make a hand sound good. That is actually quite poor. A double straight draw. Potting, you can't continue.
Nice.
Don't do it. Oh my god,
Check
lose.
Every now and again win.
Never. Like the chances are 0. Imagine he just wins there. But no, he just can't win that hand, unfortunately. Epiphany 77. One more hand.
Spade. We're in business.
This is pretty fun. Nice hand. That's a good one.
I don't think he pots too many non-nut flush draws or any flush draws that aren't nut flush draws on the turn. So I think spade bluff.
Don't 4-bet this, by the way.
Clean.
Unless you have a read.
At least not many of them.
And I don't mean them. I don't mean a wide read. Like I mean like an actual read. Ooh.
So good at sets of kings. So good at sets of
Opponent
kings.
probably got a pot or something.
All right. So the question if he
check. Okay, so check on the flop. Some players actually have aces in the spot and do check. But most players would just be betting or potting the flop on such a dry texture. But this guy with a min 3-bet obviously plays unconventional. On the turn, I mean, look, there are so many straight draws possible. You unblock aces. You really have to try to win the whole stack. SPR 4 means you need 2 pot-sized bets to get the money in. This is something, by the way, a lot of PLO players should become very studied on or not. I mean, you just need to have this. You just need to understand that SPR 4 means pot and the money goes in. Because you can't overbet the river, this is essential. So now he has to pot and then jam river.
I was going to say if he bets, we shove. But...
Pot it. I mean, he doesn't have to pot, right? If he thinks his opponent is incredibly weak or wants to bet smaller for another reason, I can see the reason. But I think in this case, unblocking aces and unblocking all the straight draws, this is a good candidate to pot.
I assume you just check. If he's got aces, then he'll bet himself.
We'll see.
If he's not got aces, then we need him to catch
up.
up.
Nice. Okay, he did get a bet out. Now rip it in. Beautiful.
Here, we just want a tank. We just want to give him time.
He likes the tank, yeah.
Just convince a recreational player that we don't have the nuts.
What do you guys think? What convinces the recreational player more that you have the nuts? A long tank or a short tank? Let me know in the comments. Money goes in. Oh my God. Yes, it's turned to straight. I mean, what can you do? You know, you got to set, got to get the money in. Ace 954. That's the thing. You got to take a read here. Min 3-bets in position. Ace 954 double.
Oh, I said nice without the nuts. That was pretty stupid.
Hit him.
Take a 7 though. I'll take a 3. I'll take a 3. I'm not being.
Unlucko. Unlucko.
Cashed out as well.
Yeah, that's super tilting when they cash out and win at the same time. Anyway, guys, this is part number 2. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. See you in another episode and take care.